everyone! Today Tiff and I are going to watch an episode of House M.D. and we are currently in our respiratory module in school, so we decided that we would pick something respiratory to focus on so we can discuss it a little bit afterward. And we found an episode on sarcoidosis, which is pretty neat because it always comes up in the differential, but it's never sarcoidosis, but this time apparently it is. So we're gonna watch through and see what happens, do our reaction thing, and afterwards we're gonna have a discussion about how the treatment was handled, how the diagnosis came up, everything that happened. So we're excited to run through that for you guys, and we'll see you again after.
Which season is this? This is
Season 5, episode 22.
Really? Do you know that for sure? I thought it was 23.
It might be 23.
Oh, please. Wow, you were so right. I'm impressed.
Just kidding, I can't drink yet because we didn't cheers.
Okay, so this is, thank you Tess, House
Season 5,
Season 5,
episode 22.
22, not 23, and it's called House Divided. A little play on words there because it's, you know, Dr. House.
Wait, what? Just kidding.
So cheers.
Cheers!
Yay. So we have, let's see, Seth here was our 15-year-old male patient with a history of meningitis when he was a child, age 4.
Yep.
And this resulted in complete hearing loss, so Seth was deaf. He presented to us with the first symptom of exploding head syndrome.
It was inside his head. So we did a little bit of looking into that.
Yeah.
Generally that can be due to either like a temporal lobe seizure or some other nerve dysfunction, but the actual exploding head syndrome is a little bit different, I think, than how he presents.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen when you're falling asleep or waking up, which Seth was doing neither one of those things. He was very much awake in the middle of a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Temporal lobe seizure.
Wrong. Someone at the wrestling.
Can we watch?
Thanks. Was it ever?
No.
Nope, definitely not. Nope, I can still see it.
Doctors, he can't see. What are his eyes?
It's over. Gets us into our next symptom, which was blindness.
Yeah.
And that goes along with the neurosarcoidosis underlying there. The technical term.
Oh yeah, usually associated with sarcoidosis is the uveitis. Itis of the
Uvea, which is the middle part of the eye. We're not eye experts.
Tiff's the optometrist after her appointment this morning. So.
Yeah, I learned a lot from my optometrist today. Shout out to Ross. In house, the patient had total blindness, which didn't make sense because he was communicating with his mother. But in reality, uveitis would cause redness, blurring, and partial,
I think they actually
not even blindness.
He says he feels the vibrations in his abdomen but not his hands. What does that mean?
new symptom.
It's a new symptom.
Wow.
Neuropathy.
Give her the MD.
Peripheral neuropathy, and again, our neurosarcoidosis can explain some of that.
Actually, increased ICP could make sense. You just said it was processing.
They found some increased intracranial pressure, and originally House thought it was a tumor, some kind of brain cancer causing that and causing the other symptoms, but that was not the case.
Biopsy shows nerve inflammation consistent with increased intracranial pressure.
Something's wrong, but it's not cancer.
Why are you closing? You're supposed to put in a cochlear implant.
Wasn't in the paperwork?
Really? Well, someone must have screwed up. I'll go track it down.
He would absolutely get fired if he put in a cochlear
I'm not
implant
trying to
without
minimize
asking.
Dr. House's wrongdoing, but
Why did you do it?
Why did I give a human being the power of hearing? You can ask God the same question. I'll give you the same answer. I gave that idiot an implant to prove to him what an idiot he's been. How was that nice?
You didn't do it to solve the case. You didn't do it to save his life. You did it to make his life better. It was a caring act, which you did in a way that was immoral and illegal, but baby steps.
So we expected to be talking mostly about sarcoidosis.
Yeah. Instead, it's become quite an ethical breach on House's part. We have to take this class called Health. What's it called? Health Research.
It's called Health Society and Research.
Health Society and Research.
Or HSR.
HSR.
We talked a lot about definitions of health and perspectives on health and who gets to decide who's healthy and not.
It's a very complex issue, as you can imagine. And there's this really cool video that we watched in class that we will put as a link for furthering education.
Yeah. It's Wilson's perspective that what he did was actually kind.
Right.
That kind of adds like even another element to the episode, maybe being a little bit inappropriate in that sense because again, it's not their decision to make, especially after the patient has declined. And at that point, his mother had declined as well.
And the patient was of a good age, like in high school.
Yeah, like understanding.
Yeah, and you know, getting towards adulthood and able to understand the risks and benefits of that kind of procedure. Probably, in reality, would have known other people that had had that procedure.
Right.
And maybe didn't want that for himself and was very comfortable with his identity. Identity is a big thing that we talked about with the deaf community, is feeling a sense of identity, not a sense of handicap, really.
Yeah. One of the quotes from another video that was sort of part of that tutorial was from a TEDx talk, and the quote was, "Why is it okay to assume disability is less than or a reduction in capacity?" And saying that even though you can't necessarily control genetics or things that happen to you, it's sort of more your attitudes and your perspective and your abilities that define who you are, not, you know, someone else's decisions on that. Yeah. So there's obviously, like Tiff said at the beginning, two sides, and some people really want that, but it's important to respect people's autonomy and people's decisions and just make sure that there's good education. And obviously something like what happened there where they just do the implant anyway isn't really going to happen in real life because it's super illegal.
Very illegal. You would be
in
fired
addition to
immediately.
being very immoral.
Yeah.
The symptoms came on too hard and too fast. Sarcoidosis is progressive.
Okay, after the brain biopsy, which was done by none other than Chase, our trusty surgeon.
The everything surgeon.
The everything surgeon. The patient developed a post-op fever, which everyone working with House included, thought it's probably just a post-op fever. But if we're going with our diagnosis of sarcoidosis, it would make sense that at this point, the cytokines that are released during sarcoidosis and like an acute inflammation would be causing a fever in this patient.
Our Dr. Tab suggests sarcoidosis.
Starts to suggest sarcoidosis.
So he gets to sarcoid, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe sarcoido.
Sarcoido.
He definitely doesn't finish
and
the
then
word.
stops.
He is distracted by bourbon ice cream, which in all fairness, I would be too.
Good distraction.
And at that point, Foreman also shuts him down, noting that the progression has been too fast for sarcoidosis.
So, I need you to kidnap me.
Spoken like a true Aussie.
Yay!
He didn't really give me the sheet music or waltzing Matilda.
Look at that. Arrhythmia.
Arrhythmia in sarcoidosis would be caused by that granulomatous inflammation of the myocardium. So, legit.
So if clotting doesn't start in the blood, it starts in the lungs, pulmonary embolism.
We should do a VQ scan, see if his lungs are clear.
Came up because they're wondering what in the body goes everywhere.
Yeah.
And the answer was
Blood. Oh no.
13 suggests thrombocythemia at that point, which is a clotting disorder.
Yeah.
And then Foreman suggests a VQ scan to rule out PE. The clotting doesn't start in the blood, it starts in the lungs. Pulmonary embolism.
quote of the episode. So we actually went through this lecture today.
This is true.
Yeah. So in your veins, you can develop a thrombus, and then little bits of that thrombus can break off, and those are called emboli. Those emboli can travel through your blood all the way back up to your heart and into your lungs.
Where that's stuck
Yes.
in the pulmonary vasculature, which would
Not
be
in the lung
a
tissue.
problem in the blood.
In the blood.
Ever wonder what's happening every time a patient gets sicker?
Heat. Kid's got UTHAV phenomenon, which means it's MS. Start him on double dose interferon.
His pseudo big moment.
Yes, well, his big moment, but not the big moment that we usually expect. He comes with the UTHAV phenomenon, which is a...
Not just a cool word.
It is also a very cool word. But it's a phenomenon associated with multiple sclerosis, where increased body temperature actually does cause exacerbation of symptoms, and this leads him to decide that all of these issues are caused, in fact, by multiple sclerosis. And social distancing here.
No. This is proving that doctors go hard.
That kid we saved, he's dying. It's not MS.
Not MS.
We're wrong.
Patient is now deteriorating even more, and he's gone into respiratory distress.
Eosinophilic pneumonitis. White blood cells accumulate, clog up the lungs, lead to heart problems. It fits. House?
The eosinophilic pneumonitis is due to eosinophil accumulations in the lungs. So that's also sort of an overreaction, cytokine histamine release thing that goes on. And symptoms for that include cough, fever, dyspnea, and night sweats. And House is kind of not super on his game at this point, which makes sense because he hasn't slept for an unspecified number of days, but a long time. I'm going to test for that to see if the patient has a hoarse voice, because they're concerned that maybe they've missed this huge symptom of the hoarse voice because the patient obviously doesn't talk much.
Say ah.
What's in there?
Some smoke.
No, it's chewing tobacco stain, so it's not a new symptom.
Not chewing tobacco, like towels, right? Sarcoidosis. So tobacco releases.
Is it treatable? Usually responds to corticosteroids and methotrexate.
True.
I'll start the meds.
So somehow, during this patient's entire presentation, from the moment he showed up until now, when Foreman is preparing to re-intubate this awake, not in respiratory distress, totally fine teenage kid, he notices huge stains all over his teeth and gums, consistent with chewing tobacco.
So let me take you through the first few steps of treating a patient, a detailed history.
Yeah.
Big no-no.
It's always interesting when you get to the end of one of these episodes and you're like, this entire time, the problem could have been solved if someone had looked in the patient's mouth.
Yeah, so basically the idea was that when the patient stopped chewing, so tobacco was depressing his immune system. When he stopped chewing, all of a sudden his immune system kicked in and he got this big flare of sarcoidosis. We've said this like so much. The timeline is now accurate in these shows. Things don't progress that quickly either.
We learned a lot. We got to apply some of our knowledge and find out more.
Yay for knowledge. Anyways, like and subscribe.
Woo! Oh my god, it's too early to say that.
Yeah. To our 10 subscribers, if you have any ideas of videos for us to do or things that we should talk about, let us know. Comment below.
Hello. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, yeah.
I don't even know where it is.
I don't know, somewhere. So I don't know where it
usually
ends
like
up.